guys were you in high school?
Well,
boy, I'd say we were pretty different. I was the jock. I played 3 sports in high school, and back then, hung out together, and there was the typical kind of jock sentiment in high school. That was me, and Greeny was usually the guys we would mock in high school.
well, in high school I had 3 or 4 really good friends, and they were imaginary.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a real good time for me, high school. I was thrown off the chess team for being too unathletic. People think I'm joking around about that, but actually one time a kid castled, and I was so stunned by it that I leaned back in my chair and it went all the way back, and I smashed down, and my mother made me stop playing chess because I got hurt. So I was genuinely too unathletic for chess. And I think if that doesn't sum up my high school experience, I don't know that anything could.
Nice.
Back when we were in high school, it was probably, I'm sure it's still clicky today, but it can be clicky. I doubt, if we were doing this show here at ESPN, we probably wouldn't cross paths, quite honestly. So I think I can honestly say, Greeny, I don't think we'd have hung out if we were in high school together.
I would disagree with that, and the reason I would is because what I did always every year at the beginning of every semester in high school was find the biggest, meanest, toughest looking kid in the class and immediately try and find some way to ingratiate myself to him. So if there was ever any trouble, I could count on him. Like with Golic, I might have removed a thorn from his paw, and I think that might in some way have ingratiated me, and thus, if some of the other kids had picked on me, I could have had him as my bodyguard. Certainly, I mean, many experiences from that time helped me. I'll give you an example. When I went to Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan in New York City, and my first day at school, one of the seniors, when I was a freshman, sold me a 6th floor pool pass. And what I later discovered was that not only didn't we have a pool, but we didn't have a 6th floor. And I learned from that day forward not to ever accept anything at face value.
You are a complete moron.
He thinks I'm making that story up. I've been telling that story for 10 years. That is a true story.
Somehow I believe that. The whole sports experience helped me because that's what I've done my whole life. Going on to play at Notre Dame and then 9 years in the NFL and now at ESPN, being involved in sports. So the whole sports aspect of it, and even being considered a better player, so having to do interviews and being in front of the media at an early age, absolutely that all helped me because that was my career. That's what turned out to be my career to this day. So all that started as was planted in me at an early age.
I was in a lot of musicals. I was always in the musicals. I really wanted a career as a Broadway musical star, and so in that way, I think there was absolutely zero preparation for what I do now. Really, next to none.
You wanted to be a Broadway star. The lack of being able to dance and or sing, was what held him.
Those hurt me, and I would say those are pretty much the only 2 things that held me back from being a great song and dance man. Was my inability to sing. Or dance.
With signing day fast approaching, do you have any advice for the guys who haven't decided yet or haven't declared?
Be sure. You have to, so many guys will, I've had 2 boys go through the process and they both committed early. And I told them, if you're going to commit early, be sure. Don't be flip-flopping. If you're not going to be sure, don't commit early. Make sure, take your trips. And at the end of the day, it's about comfort. You're going to hear a lot of things from a lot of coaches that may not be true about what you're going to do for that school. You have to be very, very comfortable with who you're talking to and how you feel at that school. I can sit here and say, look at the school for the academic purposes, but listen, and you should do that. You definitely should. But we also know a lot of these blue chippers, they're going to high school or they're going to these colleges for the football program and the coach that's there. That's just part of the equation. That goes into it now. But you should make sure that the education can go along with it. But that's changed over the years as well. Comfort is the biggest thing. Feel comfortable where you're going.
We'll get back to your radio show now. It's a morning show. What time do you guys go to bed? Do you get to stay up for the late night games? How does that work? Do you sleep ever?
Yes. I believe sleep is overrated. We don't sleep a whole lot, to be completely honest with you. Golic, I think, actually crossed the line into being officially a vampire at some point last year. We go to sleep early. I've always said that the key to our hours is discipline. You've got to be disciplined, because if you don't really make sure you're getting your sleep, then you won't. You really have to force yourself sometimes to miss things. Not so much to miss sports, but sometimes other things. We're seeing the sports as part of our job.
And we have such a great, behind the scenes staff here that we can see any video we need to, or they have packets of information for us if we miss the end of games. But Greeny's right. You have to be able to get your sleep, or by the end of the week you're just going to be a zombie, and it's very difficult. We're getting up there in age. We can't run with the big dogs like we used to.
Well, what time do you guys get in for the show?
I get in right about 5 o'clock, about an hour before the show.
I'm here usually about 2:15, 2:30. I do about 3.5, 4 hours worth of solid show prep. Wouldn't you say? Is that about right?
I would say it's an absolute lie.
I get here about 10. I get here about 10 minutes after he does.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a moment on the show when you've asked a question to a player, coach, or guest, and as soon as you said it, you go, "Why did I just say that?"
Oh,
Has
many
an
times.
embarrassing moment.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, many times.
More
Absolutely.
times than I can count.
Listen, it's 20 hours a week. We are live on the air. I make more mistakes than anybody.
He does.
I do. I don't speak so good
He does not.
at times.
No.
I make up words at times.
He does.
My questions at times take a minute and a half to ask. I do a lot of things. I do a lot of things wrong, but I try and learn from them and I move on.
Yeah, he's very dumb. I mean,
Yeah.
I think is what he's trying to say, and that's true, and that comes with a series of challenges that I'm hopeful in our next 10 years we'll be able to overcome.
Do you guys have any advice for high school students who one day want to, when you retire, take your position at ESPN Radio with a national radio sports show?
All kidding aside, I've always said this whenever I've spoken in high schools or colleges, because Mike and I got where we are from totally different places. He played, he didn't sort of come up through the ranks in the broadcasting world as I had to, and it's a tough trip, and it is there are very few guarantees, and it's not real glamorous. So all kidding aside, I always say to high school kids, if you can think of something else, maybe more for college kids, if you can think of another career that you think you would be excited about and passionate about and really enjoy, do that, because there are so many more opportunities. If you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a teacher, you want to be a doctor, you pick up the phone book, the Yellow Pages in New York, and there are probably 100,000 lawyers. There are 30 working sportscasters in the biggest media market in America. So just the odds are against you. You're going to work weekends, you're going to work nights. So I'm not even trying to be facetious. I hope it's coming off serious, that if you can think of something else that you think you would really be passionate about, I really advise going in a different direction. If this is the only thing you could ever envision yourself doing, then just be prepared to sort of have to ride a bunch of waves and work a lot of really odd hours and work a lot of weekends and work a lot of holidays. And it's not always fun and glamorous.
Well,
and that's serious advice.
And he's right, because there's so few spots available for it. My advice, if you want to do it in high school, is get reps. And there are ways to get reps now. High school games get called on radio, on TV all the time. I've heard so many stories of guys just sitting in front of their TV and turning the sound down and calling a game. Get reps. Broadcasting and communication divisions in schools are so good nowadays. Take advantage of it. Get in front of a camera, get a microphone in your hand as many times as you can, and try and learn from it.